Good day, good day. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Jay, and this is Homeschool Yo Kids podcast. Before we get started, make sure you check out homeschoolyourkidsexpo.com. You can check out our schedule for next year, as well as the many resources that are listed on our website. And remember that homeschooling is never meant to be done alone. So check out a couple of our sponsors. Classical Conversations is mission, definitely big mission, to ensure that you are community supported. They are nationwide curriculum provider as well as community. And we have Base Camp, a brand new app that ensures that you find your tribe. They have different resources local with you wherever you're located. And then they also have families in your area that you can look and see if y'all have the same kid ages and things like that. It's pretty cool. So check them out too, Base Camp. And today we have with us Charity. Charity, introduce yourself.
I'm Charity Silvers. I'm a veteran homeschool mom who's all done homeschooling our five children. It took 25 years to get them through. And I'm actively involved in the PSP, the Private School Satellite Program, where our children were enrolled. And I'm the administrator of that now. And my best volunteer job ever is being the treasurer on the board of directors of Christian Home Educators Association of California. And I've been doing that now for just about 6 years. And I've been able to help them with their financial reporting and just managing finances throughout the year, and also heavily involved in their operations for a couple years. So I'm just excited to share that with everyone on your podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to hear 'cause veterans. I'm always like tipping my hat because y'all say numbers that I'm just like, oh my gosh. This is just year 5 for me. So it's like, oh, 25. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. Like, goodness.
yeah.
But okay, so if you have 5 little ones and you did it. Why? What made you choose homeschooling?
Well, it was quite interesting, and I'm finding out now as I talk to other people that were in my generation of homeschooling that we all kind of heard about homeschooling from the same source. And it was back in before we ever even had children in 1984. We heard the Focus on the Family radio program, and there was Dr. Raymond Moore gave a talk about homeschooling and, better late than never, especially for boys, because they tend to mature a little bit later than girls. And so that talk was what made me think that homeschooling would be a good thing to try out for our family. And I was still working at the time that I heard that, and I was working full time until our first son was born, and then I continued working part time after that because I was working on getting my CPA license, so I needed to do what was needed there. And when it came time for our son to be homeschooled, 5 years later, when he was five and a half, um, we really prayed that, if the Lord wanted me to homeschool, that he would work out the circumstances. And it worked out, and we just kept doing it every year. And we had all girls. So
And 1 boy and 4 girls. Oh,
yeah, because I
wow.
prayed for a big brother because I thought it was good to have a big protective brother, and that's what we got.
Nice.
So we just added each of the girls to this homeschool mix as they got old enough.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so 1984, first of all, was the year I was born. So that's very intriguing to know that you heard a broadcast on that year. Um, but okay, so you heard a broadcast. He, gave you the display of why homeschooling is the better choice. And you went with it. You figured out and
Yes,
got everything aligned for you to be able to homeschool.
yes.
How was it in that, and especially during that time of less resources?
Oh, it was different resources, okay?
Okay.
But you're right, you know, there is so much more, and I think nowadays the moms might be overwhelmed because there's so
Yes.
much to choose from. Back then, and because our budget was tight, I wasn't able to do everything that other my friends were able to do, but we were very resourceful because we had to come up with things ourselves because we didn't even have the internet back then. You know,
It did.
we had library cards and friends, and that but back then even the major homeschool publishers, you know, that publish Christian curriculum were not it was hard to get curriculum for homeschoolers that day, you know, because they published it for Christian schools, but they made it available. But a lot of it was we had used curriculum sales also because I was involved in a support group, and they would have a used curriculum sale and you could go buy things there. And the friends that I had were also very helpful in that they shared with you, you know, they let you try things out and they passed things on when they were done. So
Nice.
it was there was a lot more one-on-one, you know, time, and then a lot more in-person community. You know, we didn't have the interaction over the internet. So we had park days usually once a week, and we got together and we chatted and talked, and that was like the saving grace for me, you know, could
Oh, yes.
get to connect in person with 10 to 20 moms, you know, every week. It was, you know, just gave me fuel to keep going because it wasn't easy, and the environment was different too. It's like you did not go out of your house until after 2 o'clock when the public schools were, you know, closed for sessions for the day, because it was not looked upon as freely as it was now. You know, it's so, and you didn't take phone calls, you know, you wouldn't you would tell your friends not to call until after 2 because you were busy homeschooling, you know, and you didn't have cell phones, you know, you had the landline. But the library card was the most valuable thing, and we fortunately lived right across the street from the library, and so we were
Oh,
there all the time, and the kids got old enough where they could walk there by themselves. And um it was the library card was an invaluable resource for us.
clutch. That was y'all
And a
clutch.
set of encyclopedias too. It's like now encyclopedias are like really old school, but that, you know, we had them for our kids. And so
Nice. Okay, so I mean, took it, to the rudimentary, like where it's like, okay, we have resources. They're just not, they look different. And you had the most important resource, which was community. And you built this
right.
community?
I didn't build it. It was actually there were some homeschool moms that were had kids older than us that had started this. There were some moms, because I started homeschooling in 1990, and there were others that had started earlier in our town. And they got um, a group going, a support group to do activities like park days and field trips. And eventually it grew because the group was active for probably a good 20 years, I want to say, you know, and it
Nice.
finally disbanded because there was no new leadership to take it on for the support
Okay.
group. And but there were well over 100 families in it, and we did all kinds of things: book report nights, science fairs, all kinds of field trips. And it was like every mom, you know, whichever mom wanted to do a field trip to the fire station or to the restaurant, or, you know, wherever, you know, the moms could figure out what their kids were interested in and plan a field trip and let everyone join. And so it was, and we had sports, you know, sports day 1 day a week where the parents would coach. We categorize the kids by ages and by sports, and so it was just really a great time, and there isn't that same thing nowadays, and that's what I think these younger moms miss out on, is they don't have all that interaction in person, where the kids can play together and interact, and the moms things, and we even had moms night out, where
Oh,
we once a month we would get together at, a different mom would host it, and we each bring a snack or a dessert to share, and then we just chat all evening, sometimes on into the wee hours of the morning if the mom
I'm
was
sure
able
you'll
to
have plenty to
have
talk
us.
about.
Yeah,
Oh, yours did that? Well, let me tell you about this. Yes.
yeah,
That is so amazing. I'm so like, but there are communities. I feel like a lot more needs to be established because I do talk to a lot of moms who are still in search of community, but then I also talk to a lot of co-ops that are like pretty like dope and just not as, I guess well found as
yeah,
they need to be, but community is so important in this
it
this
is.
walk. It really is. So
It
I'm
is.
glad that you found that. Okay, so
Yeah.
you had the activities, you had the interaction, you had the library, which is key to all. Um, what was your day like your day to day for with five?
Well, when we started actually homeschooling the oldest, we had just given birth to the third one then. Like we started homeschooling. Actually, you know what? Let me back up a minute because in California, where
Mhm.
I'm at, kindergarten isn't required. You have to have your child enrolled in school once they're 6 on September 1st. So, um, the year that our son was 5, we just had the 2 older kids.
Okay.
And then, and they were just a year and a half apart in age. So we kind of did some things, the younger sister did some things together, but it was just, getting up in the morning and doing, the things, going through math and reading and science and Bible. We always did Bible. And then it was the next year when we had our next daughter was born on August 31st. And so we started, and then that year, the second child was ready to start kindergarten. So I had a newborn and a kindergartner and a first grader. And that was when we enrolled in what's called a PSP, which is a private school satellite program. And that's one way to homeschool here in California. Um, is that you're enrolled in a private school that's made up of homeschoolers. And you can also set up a private school in your own home and be a private school as your own family. That's filing a private school affidavit, and that's another way to homeschool. And then the other options are to do it through a charter or a public school homeschool program. So those are how you can homeschool in California. But we've always had our children enrolled in a PSP, and that was another source of community for us. And the PSP that we were enrolled in and that I still work for is got started in about 1993, and it was just a group of moms that didn't want to file their own affidavits themselves, and so they joined together and created a school. There were 2 moms that were the older moms of the group, and they created this school, and I became involved with them a little bit later to help them incorporate as a nonprofit organization. And that school grew. At one point it had over 250 students enrolled in it,
Oh
and they
wow.
did graduation ceremonies, and they offered the standardized testing for those who wanted to do it. And And at one point in time, they were operating while the support group was operating in our valley. So there were some people were in both groups, and there were other large groups like ours in nearby communities. And we actually had a sports league going on for junior high and high school students, where they would play soccer in the fall and volleyball in the spring. And we had about, I think, 6 different teams competing in that. And that was that was just a wonderful time for our older kids, especially, to be involved in. And so that I kind of derailed from your question, but it was a good time to interject about the private school community
Yes.
and stuff. And so back to our homeschool day, we just adjusted things because at times, because I was homeschooling the older two, there were 3 younger ones born. And so a lot of times I was having a nursing baby to deal with while I was homeschooling. So a lot of times I would sit on the couch with the baby in my arms while I was nursing her, and the older kids would be on my sides while we were reading a book. Or and sometimes one of the older ones would entertain the toddler while I would work one-on-one with the other older one. We just learned to modify things because that's what you have to do. It's more just living life. And because large families exist, during the summertime and manage life, so why can't you just modify things during the school year and throw a book or two in here and study? And our kids, we had what we called a Friday school with our support group. And for a month each semester, we would get together on Fridays, Friday mornings, and it was all set up in advance where parents would sign up to teach a class, and then the moms would sign up their children for whatever class, and we'd get together. There were usually 2 or 3 classes on a Friday morning for 4 weeks of the month. And it was like a big deal for all these kids to get together and do school with their friends and learn, all kinds of things, whether it was science or cooking or arts and crafts or whatever. And it was just, I really miss those days, and
Oh,
I feel bad that the current homeschoolers don't have all those opportunities that our kids did, because it was real enriching for them.
gotcha. But it essentially is the private school. Like, would you consider it like a modern day micro school?
Um, I don't know enough about micro
Okay.
schools to know, but every PSP is different. So the one that we had was more, it was first started to set up for record keeping, and then eventually it evolved to having more activities because it got larger. And then that they had one team in the sports league, and the support group actually had another team in the sports league. So it was funny because these kids that grew up together, and they knew each other from the same group, some were on one team and some were on another, but it all worked out. But there's some other PSPs that I know of, that are part of CHIA's support network, and I'll explain that in a minute. But they're in other areas of the state, and they actually are have activities held at a church. They have class days at a church. They have all kinds of field trips and stuff. And there's a large one down in the San Diego area too that's very active with um it's almost like a regular school per se, that there's numbers and all kinds of activities. And they have class days, but they're not where you go get dropped off 5 days a week. None of the PSPs that I know of are like that. And I mentioned
Like a
this.
Monday through Friday.
Right, right. Because um CHIA, Christian Home Educators Association of California, promotes private Christian home education, and we want the parent to be involved in doing that, and so we want to support the parents in doing that. And so they've created a support network for groups. So, because homeschool leadership, you mentioned the co-ops, and that some of them might not be well found or whatever, but CHIA Support Network provides guidance and training and support for leaders who are head up all these different groups. And I think they have about 3 different leadership events throughout the year. And there's usually one is at our annual convention in the spring, and then we have one in the summer, and we usually have one later on in the fall. Sometimes in January too, we have a Capitol Day up in Sacramento. And so they have leaders come together to hear speakers speak on what leaders would be helpful to leaders. So it's just it's one way that CHIA supports the leaders of all these groups. And so that's that.
Nice. No, that's good. And we can talk more about CHIA because you all are I know you've been present as far as with Treasury for the past 6 years, but CHIA is a so to speak veteran organization itself. You could speak
It
on their
is.
history.
Yeah, they actually got started by 2 homeschool moms back in 1982 that thought that these moms were getting all kinds of phone calls, from other homeschoolers saying, how do we do this? And so they decided to get, I actually have some notes that I saved, because we had our 40th anniversary back in 2022, and we recognized that at our annual convention that year. And because they created CHIA in 1982. They had their first annual convention in 1984. And CHIA was really instrumental in a lot of the legislation here in California that affected homeschoolers. And they were able to reach out to different areas across the state through these support network groups, because CHIA would notify these groups, and these groups would notify their members saying, write your legislator or call in or whatever. And that was back in the day where we had phone chains. We didn't have email to send something out by mass. You called one person, and that person called 5 other people to say, pass the word.
Ooh,
and so
sir, don't unplug that.
What's that?
That's mine.
What?
That box. You're turning off lights. Okay.
I'm just here to relax.
I was nervous. It was my Wi-Fi. It was my
Oh,
Wi-Fi.
no.
It made me so nervous. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
I like
No, that's good. I'm glad you're okay.
Yes, I was like, oh no, because you would have went blank, honey. Okay.
Yeah. So and she has kept growing stronger, and had we would have conventions that, with several thousand people, back in the heyday of things, and that was what provided the funds for our budget to operate, the rest of the year. And that things have changed now, and especially COVID made a big hit on things, and reduced our ability to hold the conventions. We weren't able to have anything for a couple of years. So but they're still growing strong. They want to support homeschoolers here in California, throughout the state. So
and I so appreciate it. Over 40 years is
How long you're gonna be here, but the mask keepers are here, and
okay.
they start making a bunch of noise.
Okay, thank you. That over 40 years is pretty amazing. Definitely for you all to keep going. Very much needed, because the
Yeah.
support and the answers, like you said, the moms just kept on receiving calls and like, hey, okay, we need to do something to support these people because there's a lot of questions.
Right, right, right. And so
Yes.
they did. They originally they had a newsletter that got mailed out. It's now an electronic email that goes out. We have a blog every week. A really informative, encouraging article goes out in our blog every week. We have we also have virtual events and webinars going on right now. We have them related to special needs or to high school or to advocacy, fighting for our rights in Sacramento. And we deal with family protection ministries. Here in California, they're another nonprofit organization that helps us. We work together, and we actually helped FPM get started, and they host a Capital Day in Sacramento. We work with them and put on a Capital Day, and families go up there and they get some training and hear some speakers, and then they end up taking packets of material about homeschooling to every legislator's office up in Sacramento. And so that is so vital, because now Nathan Pierce, who's the head of Family Protection Ministries, he walks the halls in the Capitol and they call him the homeschool guy. They know who he is because of what he represents. And we wouldn't be able to do all the homeschooling we do here in California without everything that FPM and CHIA and even HSLDA, Homeschool Legal Defense Association, has done to promote and protect the rights of homeschoolers. So all three of those organizations are vital in our freedoms that we have here in California.
Indeed. And I was going to ask you, as far as restrictions or just the requirements in general, did you see them change a lot over your time in homeschooling when you were homeschooling yourself?
They actually got more free in a way.
Nice.
Because originally it was like homeschooling was legal, but it wasn't until I believe 2008 that the way some cases went through the legislation, through the court system, that eventually it got to be that they said that homeschooling was legal based as a private school, and so it was there in case law that we can homeschool as a private school. And that meant that we were now, as long as we complied with the private school laws, which there is a set of private school laws here in California. And so now when they make laws or propose laws related to schools, okay, is it public or private? And if it's private, do private home schools need to follow it? Like, because there have been rules that about safety issues in schools, like fire extinguishers and water pipes that are safe, and so at one point the legislation was passed that all schools have to have their pipes inspected to make sure that they're not old and corroded and causing problems for the water going through the school. Well, they were able to get private schools exempted from that, private homeschools exempted from that, because that would be a huge expense, and private homes are going to be safe. They're not,
Right. It's my house, sir. I will
and there are other things like that where Nathan and his team have to review all the legislation that is proposed to see what's going to affect things. And so it's just a real blessing to have him and his team watching out for us and making sure that, okay, this is a private school law or public school law, you know, how's it going to affect us? And so, and actually it became, as the years progressed over our 25 years, and more people were homeschooling, it was okay to take our children out in public
Before too.
before too, yeah, because it's like you weren't questioned, you know, you didn't have someone calling a truant officer saying this child's not in school, you know, and so yeah, but
Yeah.
it's more free, but we still need to keep an eye on what's going on because there's so much legislation out there and people that think they know what they're doing, but they don't necessarily, you know, have the full picture. So
Indeed. So CHIA provides a newsletter, you all provide a blog, you all have the convention that you have been hosting um for many, many decades. And you provide, well, you fight for legislation to ensure that the
we
rights are
do.
kept. And what else, what other resources or services do you all provide?
Well, we actually have a home education consultant, and there's a phone number posted in our emails, and I believe it's on our website that you can call for free, you know,
Right.
certain hours of the day and not every day of the week, but there's certain hours you can call and ask. And she's a veteran homeschool mom too, and you can call and ask her questions to get, you know, if you don't know what to do, what curriculum to choose, or how to do this or how to do that, you can call her. We also have a special education consultant. So if you have a child with special needs, we provide certain levels of membership of our organization. And if you're at one of the premium levels, you get 2 free 30-minute consultations with our special education consultant. And she's a certified special ed teacher here in California. And she will help you figure out, you know, what's needed to help your child that has, you know, a special need. And she's has such a heart for these homeschooling moms because that's such a difficult thing to do. You know, homeschooling is hard enough, but having special needs, you know, there's another burden put on there. But we believe that the parents are the best teacher for their children because they love their child, they have the best interests of their child at heart. So that's another thing. We also have several Facebook groups. One of them is called Homeschool California, and you can ask whatever questions you want in the group, but you can even just do a search because I'm pretty sure that every question a mom would have has already been asked. And
Yeah.
we have again, veteran homeschool moms are moderating that, and they're offering answers as well as answers from other people in the group. And it's it's a great way to find support, and you can just hop on your computer and do that. We also have a really valuable group called Working Homeschool Moms, and that has actually reached, I think it's even reached nationwide. I think maybe even worldwide there might be other moms on it, but that is for moms that have to work. And especially here in California where the cost of living is so expensive, there's a lot of, you know, moms that have to work. And so that puts a whole nother dynamic in homeschooling because you're juggling work and responsibilities. And I was actually a working mom for a lot of our homeschool years, so I know what it's like. And this Facebook group, you know, helps those moms out. You know, you ask a question, how do I juggle my schedule, how do I work it out? And you know, it's both of those groups are fabulous. We also have different products available for sale on our website, and I actually have samples of them I can show you.
Okay.
We have the two ladies that formed CHIA, that got it started. They wrote a book called the California Homeschool Manual. And this is like, you know, over half an inch thick. But this has everything you need to get started homeschooling in California. It talks about the law, it talks about what's required, it gives you sample forms and everything you can need. And there's resources at the back of that book with different everything you can imagine. But if this is almost like a Bible for homeschooling here in California. But there are a couple other books, and they are let me see, they're part of the Firm Foundation Library is what we call them. And there are two other books, Let Us Highly Resolve and Education, Does God Have an Opinion? And both of these books are really valuable to give you deeper like philosophy about homeschooling and why you do it. Because if you don't have a philosophy of education, which is why you're doing and how you're going to do what you do, on those hard days, and the hard days will come, you're going to want to give up. But if you have a good philosophy of education, of why are we doing this? What do we want to accomplish with our homeschooling? You're going to stay the course because you believe in what you're doing, you know, and so
Right.
that's so important for each family to establish.
Yes, definitely.
We also have other publications. There's this book, The Battle for Homeschool Freedom in California. J. Michael Smith, who was the who helped establish Homeschool Legal Defense Association, he was originally here in California, and he was instrumental in so many of the legislative battles that we've had here. So he had written that book to summarize where we were and where we've come with all the battles, because it used to look far different, and now there's a California is relatively a good state to homeschooling. You know, so many people bash California for a lot of other reasons, but we are good as far as homeschooling, thanks to FPM and what she has done. We also have some publications related to preschooling, preschool at what cost, and preschool at home. You know, I really think it's best to defer formal learning as late as you can, because children actually learn better during play. But there's some parents out there that think we need to do preschool, and so these are some good resources to help you learn how to do what's best for your child at that young age. We have another book by Israel Wayne called Answers for Homeschooling. And there's a lot of people critical of homeschooling. And so this book goes through 25 questions like, is it legal? How can you afford to homeschool? What about socialization? That's the big question, you know, and
Yes.
actually the best quick answer for that is that, do you want your child socialized by peers their same age, where they're stuck in a classroom 6 hours a day, or do you want them socialized by you, where they're learning to get along with their siblings of different ages? They're learning to get along with people at church or people in the community or your neighbors or whatever, you know. So it's like, what kind of socialization do you want for your child, you know? And so that book is really great, because especially when young parents are starting to homeschool, they may not have all the support of their family. So that book would give a lot of good answers, you know, and help them realize that that's a good way to go. There's also, you know, I don't remember how old your children are, but eventually they get up to high school. And
Oh.
so one of the moms that was an early homeschooler in California wrote this book, The High School Handbook. And again, it's one of those thick books, but this book has everything you need to teach high school, you know, because at that point you're wanting to have a transcript, you know, so how do you make sure they get all their credits for graduation? And so this book goes through it. This book was so valuable when it first came out that the PSP that we were enrolled in required all junior high and senior high parents to have this book, because we followed the way they did their paperwork to document credits for different courses is what we followed here. So this book is available on our website. And then of course, high schoolers need to learn to drive or want to learn to drive, right? And so we had driver education and driver training for homeschooled teens here in California. And this is a much thinner book because it doesn't cover that much. But Mary Schofield wrote that book too, and it's available in PDF format too on our website. And that tells you the steps that if you as a private schooler, what you do with your child to have them get their driver's license, you know, and there's a few steps involved, but it can be done if you have your own private school. Now, our PSP helps parents in that process, so they don't need to do it on their own. But if anyone's going to file their own private school affidavit, then that book will show them what they need to do. And then those are our publications. We also have audio recordings. So when we have our conventions, the sessions are recorded and they're available for purchase too on our website. So that's another valuable resource. And when we do webinars, like we've had in the summer of, I think it was the summer of 2024, they had a special education webinar. And so we have those recordings available. We have a high school webinar that will have taken place in the summer of 2025, and that should be available on the website too, you know. So, and plus on our website, there's all kinds of information available. We have so many resources on our website. Plus, if people become a member of our organization, they can they get access to a free civics guide to teach civics to their children. There's a free homeschool planner too, which helps you organize your week, your day, your whole year. And those are only available to members. So there's an advantage to being a member. And then everything on our publications on the website, if you're a member, you get 10% off. So there's advantages to being a member, and you also get discounts for any of the other events that we have that cost. Members get a discount to those too. So
nice.
Yeah. So trying to think what else we have available. We do give the we mentioned the legislative issues already, but we also send out alerts when something needs to be done, when you need to call in or write in, you know, and at times we've even showed up at the Capitol. There was one issue going on that they were going to make changes to private schools, and so we filled the hallways of Sacramento Capitol, and that was just really amazing to see so many people show up and represent homeschooling.
Nice. Y'all provide a lot of support, and I love that because California community is very, very big. Whenever I'm looking through your resources and things that are available, there's a lot. There's a lot going on in support of homeschooling. So, and y'all are I'm sure, very instrumental in that. Having established the foundation that you have. And the literature that y'all have is very, very important. Because I was going to
It
ask you,
is.
how did your family receive? Because you were first generation homeschool. How did your family receive you homeschooling?
They were okay with it.
Okay.
We didn't have any problems. At times they were skeptical, especially as we had more children. They didn't know if I'd be able to do a good job, but they could see, and once our son graduated from 6th grade right at the same time that our youngest was born, and once he got to that milestone, they saw, wow, you are able to do it, and I had another relative homeschool, and because they had seen us homeschooling, so they were inspired, I think, because
Oh, nice.
and so it doesn't happen that way in every family, but you're a light to other families, whether it's your biological family or families at church or in your community. You can show that it can work, and especially once the first one graduates from high school, like, okay, I did it, so then you can do it because you've done it once, and we did it all
All
5
five.
times. Yeah,
Yes. Look, the proof is in the pudding, honey. I'd
it
like,
is.
and
And
it is better to show rather than tell. As far as like, okay, you may not understand, but just keep watching. Look, keep
right,
watching.
exactly. And sometimes that's what it takes. And it may not always be easy for the family dynamics to have tension there. But I really
Indeed.
encourage the parents that are homeschooling to stick it out, because you know what's going to be best for your child. You know,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, very, very important. I love that 25 critical questions because I just know the questions and be questioning, and it's like, wait, hold on, I got a book for this. Okay. Let me make you a copy so you can read it too.
Yeah.
Like,
You know
no,
what?
that's
I want to mention one more thing,
mhm.
because um I mentioned our state organization, and we're here in California, but there are similar Christian homeschool organizations in most of the other states here in the US. And they're joined together in the National Association of Christian Home Education Leadership, and it's nicknamed the Alliance. And CHIA was instrumental in getting that alliance started back in I'm trying to think, I don't remember what it was, in 2002 that the alliance got started. And the alliance actually has a conference every year, every September. So these leaders in the state organization, like here in California and all the other states, they get together to learn about how to better run things in each of their states, because running an organization like ours is unique. It's not like a church, and it's not like a school, it's helping homeschoolers across the state. So we get together once a year and have a conference to build each other up and to support each other and to learn new ideas and to discuss legislation at the national level, because there are federal legislation that affects homeschooling sometimes too. So if they have a website called homeschoolfreedom.com, and if you go to that website, you can find the organization in your state that is similar to what CHIA does in California. So that's a good source of information.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Um, Before I let you go, I got 2 more questions for you. So we are pushing our time. So, okay, with all that you do, I'm still actively in the community of homeschool world, even with yours, long gone, graduated. How do you self-care? How do you make sure you are, the light continues to be the light, because sometimes we get a little tired and our light could dim,
Yeah.
but we don't take care of ourselves. How do you self-care?
Um, I read my Bible and pray every day. That's the most important thing that I can do. I also have some close friends that I can get together with and chat and visit with. And I also, attending leadership events, whether it's CHIA's Support Network Leadership Conference that they have, or it's attending this alliance leadership thing that feeds me, and helps me connect with other leaders. So
Right.
I probably should do more exercise, but I don't have time to fit it in.
Yes, I mean, exercise isn't always self-care, okay? It depends on what kind of exercise it is. But no, that is good. I'm glad because I know speaking with other leaders and finding out like, okay, there are other people that are passionate about the same thing I'm passionate about. That is rewarding and refilling because it's like sometimes it's like, oh, like what's going on out here? It's like, okay, I
Yeah,
got it. I got a community. Like we understand what we got going on and we understand our roles that we need to
right,
play. So
right,
I
right.
love that. And last thing, 3 things that you would if the listener does not hear anything else during this conversation, 3 things you want to leave them with.
Wow, it would have been good to know ahead of time about that question.
Off
Um,
guard, yes.
okay, the first thing is the homeschool parents can do this. No matter how difficult it might be or overwhelming, the parents can do this. The parents are the best teachers for their children. The third one. And you need to find community and get connected somehow to because you're not an island. You need to have community with others, especially with those who have the same kind of faith as you, to build you up and encourage you on, because the bad days will come, but you can get through it.
Indeed, indeed. You heard her. You are the one. You are the chosen one, and you the best. Like you the best to do it. So hey, find that community, find that support, and homeschool your kids.
Yes, homeschool yo kids.
Yes, ma'am.